This is the Mimosa Confessions, and I'm gonna flip the video so you can actually see it, but it's a book written by Mei Hachimaku, and this book is really good. I can end the video right here, but fortunately, I have a lot more to say about this book. So what is this book about? I'm gonna give you a quick synopsis, and I'm gonna give you the big sort of hook that grabs you into the story. So let me just start you off by reading the back part of the book. So the book revolves around this boy named Sakuma. He lives in a pretty superb town, and he has basically no friends aside from his best friend Ushio. Now Ushio is the most popular boy in the school. Good looks, academics, athletic prowess. He takes track, and so he makes a pop with the girls at school. And understandably, he gets a bit of inferiority complex because I'm a loser. And this, my best friend's like way higher up there. And so over middle school and such, they sort of drift apart. And so we reach high school now, and he's still alone. Sakuma's still alone, but he eventually finds a new friend in this girl named Natsuki. And so they get off incredibly well. Sakuma starts to have a little bit of a crush on Natsuki, and everything seems fine. But suddenly, once he comes home one day from high school, he comes across someone. His old friend Ushio, dressed in a full-blown schoolgirl's uniform and sobbing uncontrollably. Now, I just did a horrible job at doing that synopsis, but that has the whole twist. Now, I'm not the whole twist in the sense. I don't mean to say like it's a whole big deal. Oh, fuck! But the main intrigue of the book, and if you heard anything about this book, you probably heard this part, but I'm gonna state it right now because it is really incredibly important to the story. Ushio, a person who was born a boy, wants to be a girl, and a large part of this series revolves around her transition, how people react to it, including Sakuma, the main character, and how he deals with the feelings of seeing his best friend that he once knew as a boy as a girl. And this story has a ton of LGBTQ themes and talks heavily about prejudice, things you don't understand, you know, irrational behavior and such. And obviously I'm gonna say right now, if you aren't down with the LGBTQ color rainbow gang, this video is definitely not for you. I'm gonna be restricting comments for very obvious reasons. So if you are not even open to the mindset of seeing how it feels and understanding how we feel, then this video is not for you and you can go dip out. But if this does intrigue you, either if you are part of the LGBTQ, if you are part of the LGBTQ or not, you should buy this, you should read this, and I'll give you the reasons why in just a little bit. I actually found this book via a tweet. I'm gonna show the tweet up here, and basically I was like, okay, that sounds like a really interesting book, you know? But it was only one moment that they mentioned in the Twitter thread that actually got me to read the story, and I'm gonna be talking about it very later on, but it's such an important scene, and ultimately is the reason why I booked about this book. So yeah, let me just start with what I flippin' love about this book. It comes down to I'm gonna be reiterating some points from the Twitter thread because it's just that good. But this story is realistic as fuck. This is a good story. Firstly, has very good representation compared to literally anything else I've read, and I'll get a bit more into that. But most importantly, it's realistic. The way people react, either be positive or negative, is incredibly realistic. You got people who are like, "Oh shit, so you identify as a girl now? I got you, bro," just like that. But then some people are like, "The fuck is wrong with you?" And it's a diverse range of emotions that is understandable. It's like to some people, because the setting takes place in a growing dreary suburb, and a large part of that is like they're very old/traditional in a way. There's one thing that I'll talk about in the story later regarding how they treat individuals who are different from society. The setting of the story takes place in an area where that sort of stuff is in common and is kind of looked down upon. And so the first thing I want to start about is reactions. And obviously I said everyone, you know, the reactions are incredibly realistic. You know, everyone's reaction to what you expect. Firstly, you know, they start like, so it's like one of the best parts about the story, in my opinion, whereas when Ushio does come out, one of the people's like, okay, I respect the dedication to the bit, but you joking now? Like, the translation for this is really, really well done. And obviously they ask questions that you'd probably expect. Which locker room are you gonna use? Which bathroom are you gonna use? Can we refer you as Ushio-chan instead of Ushio-kun or some shit? They ask questions that you'd obviously ask, like, okay, so you identify as a girl now, so you could be using the girls' restroom. You could use the bathroom. And some of the more reactions are like, you know, wait a second, if Ushio's a girl now, does that mean she's like men? And some people are like, wait a second, do you think that Ushio, whenever she was in the locker room with us, she was having the time of her life seeing all the dudes, and some of the dudes are like, someone's just like, dude, you're a fucking genius. And Sakuma's like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? And it's just a really silly scene. Like not silly. It's like, oh, that's so funny. But like, you know, it's obviously something you'd think for a second, and and like completely forgetting that girls can like girls too. It's just really, it's not stupid, but like obviously because people like especially like I said in the setting, people aren't really accustomed to it, so like obviously they'll have questions like that. So like, so you like boys now or something, because you're a girl. It's realistic. That it makes the part way more realistic. And obviously you get people on the other side, and there's one character I want to mention, but I'll just mention her right now, Nishizono. She is one character who is adamantly against Ushio's transition for multiple reasons. Let's just stay in the story, but the reasons she provides in the stories are incredibly realistic. And while it's a piece of shit mindset, you can sort of understand. And I'll be talking about it a bit later, because yeah, I'm saying bullet points here, which I will elaborate on later on, because I really do not know what the flip I'm talking about right now. But she's such a good antagonist in the way that of her mindset goes. One of the best things that you can have, like in terms of like conflict and such, is like conflict where you're like, okay, I sort of understand, but like, it's not really your place. And this story has a ton of that. Yeah, the reactions are pretty much what you expect. Ushio goes from this popular boy to everything to being essentially an outcast. And it's only until later in the story that people start treating her like a normal human being, and that's a big part. That's a big part of this entire story. Like a character development for the entire school, in which Ushio is a social outcast, and no one treats her like a human being. They treat her like someone you should stay away from. And it's only until later on in the story where Nishizono gets suspended for doing some bad things that people start opening their mind up to Ushio and be like, well, we were kind of being dicks. We didn't really quite understand your situation. If you want to get some McDonald's or sometime, we can talk about it. And it's a sweet development that you notice in the story, because this story does hit you in the feels. And now I talk about the reactions and such. I want to get into the characters. I have this really great outline going on here. It's just full of bullet points, and hopefully I can get those bullet points out. So Ushio, the main character, I love her so much. She is very determined and chill, and she's able to hold her ground a lot of times when people are like, this is a bit and such. She's like, no, this is who I want to be. I want to live my life to be who I want to be. And even when she's facing a lot of troubles, especially from Nishizono, who verbally abuses her, messes her up everything, writes stuff, talk about how she's a pervert, pedophile, stuff like that, shit like that. Spoilers. She's still able to hold her ground in a sense. Future Noodle here. The word pedophile wasn't directly stated. It just seemed like when I was reading it, Nishizono would probably use that word as well. And taking cues from real life, a lot of anti-LGBTQ people will often go that route of calling anyone who is LGBT groomer/pedophile that'll hunt your kids and some random shit. And just because she transitioned doesn't mean she suddenly lost everything that she once has. Like, for example, she's still super smart. She still has good looks, still physically athletic, and stuff like that. And so those elements of hers aren't obviously didn't disappear. And obviously in the story, a lot of the focus is put onto her and what she feels. And the greatest moments in the story, in my opinion, because I am trans, some of the greatest moments in the story is just her talk about how she feels, what things happen in her life to get her to where she is now and made her realize that she wanted to be a girl and such. Obviously you're gonna feel for Ushio no matter what, because a lot of bad shit happens to her. And it's not really her fault. It's just she just wants to be who she is, and she gets fucking flamed for it. She's just an incredibly compelling and genuinely a character I love, and I want to see more. I want to see more of her. Even within this over 300-page book, it's light novel. I mean, there's so much more to learn about her, and I think we can talk about Sakuma now, because Sakuma is an interesting character. He's very open-minded. He's a loner. Nonchalant. No, I'm kidding. He's very chill, very open-minded, and a large part of his story is learning to not just not be that way, but also grow into someone that is able to protect those he loves. When Ushio starts getting flamed, start being a social outcast and such, Sakuma doesn't really do that much, especially when she's being verbally abused by Nishizono. And a large part of the story is him sort of growing that courage to protect his best friend, who he doesn't want to see get abused and such. And it comes to a really nice scene where he says to Ushio that no matter who you are, boy or girl, I always want to be there for you, and I always want to protect you. And it's a really good scene. It's a really sweet scene. He's obviously very supportive towards Ushio's transition. And I think it gets more complex when, so there's gonna be a bit of spoiler territory here, but Sakuma's feelings on Ushio gets a bit more complicated when he starts seeing her as like a girl. And that sounds weird, but I'll elaborate on it later. But at some point in the story, Ushio reveals that she has a crush on Sakuma, and Sakuma doesn't know how to take that, because while Sakuma does see Ushio as a girl, he can't really mentally bridge that gap between sex and gender. And a large part of the story is him trying to move, like, you know, build that bridge between that gap, because it's pretty obvious that I won't spoil it, but it's pretty obvious that Sakuma does have some feelings for Ushio, and it starts to grow bigger and bigger as you start seeing Ushio as more of a girl, because Sakuma says himself in the story, you know, I'm a heterosexual man, nothing wrong with being gay or anything, but like, I like girls. And so that mental bridge gap between sex and gender, it's really compelling seeing Sakuma come to forge those two laps and such. And it's really good, and there's one scene that really represents it, but I'm gonna leave that for a scene because I'm building so many plot points right now. Alright, so now we can get to representation, and this is really fucking good. And this is coming from someone who, similar to Ushio, male to female. Transgender, noodle boy, noodle girl. You know, I'm so glad I chose Noodle as a name. Like, it's so easy to just switch. And people just call me Noodle anyway. This is not a hard it was not a hard transition for me. But joking aside, as someone who is trans, male to female, just like Ushio, there are many scenes in this book that I might say are near perfect. Ooh, you saw a picture there. Wait, hold on. Ooh, wait, you guys saw again. There are scenes in here that are near perfect. And firstly, I want to say right now, the author purposely excluded LGBT terms from the story, and it's in the afterword here, and it's not like oh, because I don't want to mention LGBTQ. No, the reason for it is that they want to make the story like more relatable to a more general audience, and not assign them specific labels and put them in a box that only other people can relate to. And while I can be a bit peeved about that, I do feel like the representation in this book is more than direct. It's incredibly direct, and so it can't be like a thing where people be like, well, actually, a moment people can actually use, because, you know, sometimes in a lot of anime and media, a lot of times characters are heavily implied to be, you know, gay, bi, trans, and stuff like that, but since it's not directly stated, someone's gonna be like, well, actually, it's not been confirmed, so take that. But I feel like for this story specifically, they're really direct. Boy wants to become a girl. Boy feels like they've always been a girl, and so they want to be a girl, and that's as direct as you can get. Like, obviously, you don't need, like, they don't use the terms like, you know, transgender and such. With that being said, a lot of the marketing for the Mimosa Confessions outside of Japan has been focusing on the LGBT themes, which I personally think is really good. Obviously, the author probably has input on this, but in my personal opinion, having the LGBT tag helps expand its reach to people who identify as part of the group and want to see either representation or validation from said source. I know from experience how validating it can be, and I'm glad this book is being advertised as such. Yeah, it's like, you know, it's something I'd be like, it's something that doesn't bother me as time, because the story is actually just really good, and it makes up for it. So, Hachimaku, you got that in the bag. But they do say, though, to be clear, there's a principle by which I try to write for all my books, not just this one. So, you know, the whole excluding terms and such, like to make it more accessible to a wider audience. That isn't just for this book. And they did do the research. If you look in the references right now, they actually have like references to books regarding gender identity disorder, gender dysphoria and such, valuing every individual's respective gender identity. So like, they always did their fucking homework, so I respect you. Yeah, the only time they actually do get close to using an LGBT term is as a slur, and I'm gonna get to it real quickly. The term they use as a slur is, though if he was into dudes, I guess that make him a you-know-what. No, I don't know what. Come on, just say the word, dude. That's Sakuma saying that, by the way. Oh, please. And the classmate's like, oh, please. Like, you don't know what I mean. And make him a trant. And so, obviously, like, the most implied one is that they're calling Ushio a tranny. We get the story from Sakuma in his head regarding how people treat people who are different in their town. Like, for example, there was this gay couple, and they were considered the gay couple in their town, and they were considered sexual deviants. They were constantly harassed. Adults told them to stay away from them. And that's the point to show in the story, and how everyone feels so Like Sakuma says it was this whole goddamn town, this whole backward ass community regarding like, you know, how people feel about people who are different, people who are gay, stuff like that. And so that's the only time they actually use a slur like that. And honestly, it makes the scene more powerful in my opinion. As the one time they use a term like that, like obviously you could be like, they only use a term and make a slur? What the fuck? But I feel like for this story and the context and how it's used, it makes it way more impactful that the one time they actually do use it, it's as an insult. And it's the one thing that makes Sakuma break, being like, you guys are fucking stupid. You guys are actually some of the worst people ever. Another thing I want to talk about in terms of representation. Okay, well, the slur is a representation, but you know. Okay, fuck. Let's move on to the next section. All right, so another scene here is when Ushio actually talks about when she thought she was a girl, and I need to find that real quickly. So give me like give me like a minute. This scene right here where Ushio just talks about when she thought she was a girl. It's really nice. Let me find it quickly. And so Ushio says some stuff like, you know, I think those feelings have been there at least as far back as I can remember, so I'm not sure there was a specific moment. Though if you want to know when I first realized there was something different about me compared to all the other kids, I'd say it was probably around 3rd grade. I remember when our class decided to perform Cinderella for the school arts festival, and we were all trying to decide who would play what roles. Prince Charming, Cinderella, etc. For whatever reason, I really wanted to play Cinderella, so when the teacher asked for anyone who wanted to put their name in for the role to speak up, I raised my hand. And I just remember the teacher laughing at me saying, "Don't you mean Prince Charming, Tsukinoki-kun?" Then the whole class started laughing. That's Ushio's last name, by the way. Might be. I did not include that in the summary. And I started laughing along with them, just to sort of go with the flow, I guess. But I remember that being a pretty jarring moment of realization for me. Like, okay, guess it's weird for me to want to play the princess part. I think that from that point on, I started really trying to act more like a boy, both because I didn't want to get laughed at again, and because I didn't want to make my mother worry about that something was wrong with me. And this detail isn't really that important, but Ushio's biological mother is terminally ill. Yeah. And I think a really nice part about Ushio, like, and this makes Ushio more complex, is just her feelings regarding, like, you know, how she was seen as a boy for a while. And, like, for example, I'm just gonna read this statement right now because I really do like this statement. Oh, it wasn't all that bad. At least it didn't feel like I was suffering or anything. I really didn't mind getting grouped in with the boys. And it's not like all my tastes and hobbies lean traditionally feminine, even if I did always wish I could be a girl. Not like there aren't tomboys and girls who prefer wearing slacks to skirts after all, you know what I mean? Though I will say that I wasn't really a fan of having to get changed with the boys or use the boys' bathroom. What with the whole culture of going to take a leak in the urinals together and everything. And then Sakuma's like, a jolt of shock ran through me. I had invited Ushio to take a leak with me on several occasions back in early elementary school. Whether she specifically remembered those instances or not, I wasn't sure, but it felt like I should apologize, just to be safe. And Sakuma's like, yeah, sorry about that. And Ushio's like, oh, you remembered? No, it's okay. I don't hold it against you or anyone else, really. It's just a thing, and you couldn't have known. And that little statement right there, the statement that I was talking about, that hits me really fucking hard. I love that statement so much. Like, obviously, everyone's different, you know? Some people do feel like they're suffering in their entire body, you know? That they incredibly feel that they were born the wrong body, and you know that's horrible for them, you know. That's not something I wish upon anyone. And on the other side, you have people who are like, you know, I didn't feel like I was suffering, you know, even if I didn't always wish I could. And you know, looking at it now, I probably shouldn't have said on the other side. It'd be more so on the spectrum or something along those lines. Saying on the other side would make it seem like the opposite, when the opposite would probably be not being trans. There's just different levels to it, and I'm really glad that we have, like, you know, stories like this to just perfectly describe the different ranges of emotion, ranges of, like, feelings that, you know, LGBTQ people can have regarding, like, how they feel inside. And it's such a really good scene, and I love that these scenes go on for long. Like, they talk for a long time. Jesus fucking Christ. The author really, oh my god, they really know what the fuck they're doing. It's just rants. It's like rants, but like, it's passionate rants. It's just a simple scene about people talking about how they feel, and it's really good. And also we get this little fun fact that Ushio has not been using any of their restrooms. She's like, I have not been using any of the restrooms. I mean, the teacher did tell me I could use the faculty restroom if I wanted to, but I didn't feel right doing that, and so she just holds her piss the entire time. Fun fact. Alright, so on my notes right now, I have one scene called the Girly scene. And this scene is a scene that I saw on Twitter that told me that I need to buy this book immediately and read it. So I'm gonna get it right now. To give some context to this scene, at the beginning of the book, Sakuma sees Ushio in the schoolgirl outfit, sobbing uncontrollably, like I mentioned in the synopsis. Anyway, Ushio fucking barfs and then runs away. It's a really funny scene, but not funny, it's not funny. But over time, when Ushio comes out, Sakuma's like, I just witnessed Ushio's secret, you know, being like wanting to be a girl. And what should I do for it? I got it. I'm going to give Ushio my darkest secret. My middle school novel. And so Sakuma gives Ushio his middle school novel to read, and at least I can't find it right now. I'll give out a fucking, I'll use a fucking meme that someone made of it because it's really funny. When they meet again later on, Ushio's like, yeah, I read it. That shit was ass, by the way. And then she goes on a fucking large ass rant about like every single nitpick of the entire story. And it's really funny. Right when Sakuma's about to leave, he takes his middle school novel, he puts it in his bag, but then he accidentally gets cut from it because it's a middle school novel. It's old as hell. Ushio's like, oh shit, let me bandage you up. After the whole bandage thing, Ushio's like, okay, you're all set, she said, nodding with satisfaction at her delicate handwork. And Sakuma says this. Wow, I said. That was kind of girly just now. The words just kind of slipped out. Ushio's eyes went wide. It was only then that I realized I might have said something offensive, and I started stressing about it. As I scrambled to come up with an explanation, I noticed a change in Ushio's demeanor. She was looking slightly down to the side, gently biting her lip at the corner. It was a yearnful sort of expression. Her earlobes were faintly flushed, and her gray eyes were wavering. How was I meant to interpret this reaction? It looked like she was trying to restrain herself from smiling, or crying, or getting upset. But which of the three? I had no clue. I could always ask what the matter was and find out right away, but assuming she was upset with me, I really didn't want to go prodding her about it. As I sat there confused and unable to discern her true emotions, Ushio reached up to fidget with her bangs. Thanks? At first, I wondered why she said with an upward inflection, but now a moment later, I recognized what I was hearing. She was feeling bashful about me calling her girly. This scene right here, this scene represents two like major points. Firstly, Ushio being called girly. Now at this point in the story, Ushio has been basically treated like not like a human being at all. She's been social outcast and such. So for Sakuma to say this, and Sakuma to say this out of pocket, like, you know, just being like blah, 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 blah. They said like, yeah, like, you know, for Sakuma to be like, oh yeah, that was girly right now. You know, like in Ushio's mindset, he called me girly, and it wasn't like him being forceful about like, yeah, you're a really cute girl. No, it came out of his mouth just like all of a sudden, and the words just kind of slipped out, and that wasn't the point I was trying to get at, but it worked out well. But the original point I wanted to make was via the tweet I had mentioned at the beginning of the video, because they made a better point than I ever would, so here are the screenshots. Basically, it's referring to the conscious actions that Ushio took in becoming more like a girl, and the one thing that made Ushio more girly in Sakuma's own eyes was something she did unconsciously, which was the way she bandaged Sakuma, which leads to validation in Ushio's eyes with Sakuma's words. So this comes down to validation, I mean. So a scene like this, where it just sort of comes out naturally, it doesn't seem forced or anything like that, was just like, it makes me feel more validated, because like with Sakuma right now, it kind of slipped out. He didn't have to think about it, it just came out automatically, and to have that same situation happen to me, that'd be one of the most sweetest moments of all time. And I can actually, like, I've had situations like this before where it's the feeling of validation that comes off naturally. It's simple things, like for example, I was doing some Minecraft stuff with some friends, and when they were referring to me, they just simply used she, her pronouns, and it just came off so naturally. Like, you know, they probably weren't thinking about, you know, doesn't even think about it, and that shit stuck with me. Like, you know, it isn't the biggest deal in the whole world, because, you know, I mean, it shouldn't be, you know, it's just like, it should be a slide by, nothing else. But, you know, to me personally, that really meant a lot to me, just like with this scene right here. You know, I have a friend group, local friend group, brain cells, if they're here, hi. The things they say in there, they probably don't think about that much, but to me, it means the fucking most when, yeah, one of the best things that I've had, you know, is like, for example, Invader Wist, if he's here, hi, he's one of my best friends. And, you know, sometimes there's a bit of lore where, like, I'm Invader Wist's child or something, and Wist will occasionally call me, like, his daughter, and that's really sweet to me. Like, you know, talk about, like, a bit and such, and, you know, like, that means a lot to me. Like, you know, I'm like, oh my god, thank you, Wist. Like, all of a sudden, like, when I say that, I'll be like, you know, it's like, you know, deep inside my heart, that makes me feel happy. That makes me feel validated. And I probably, let me rephrase that, I don't mean like normal human being. I just mean like being treated like normal. Like, I'm just a human being that just so happens to be trans. And, you know, like, that could be applied to everything. I don't mean like, I want to be part of the normal people, you know, so like, no, I don't mean like that. I mean like treated like, just being treated like a human being. And of course, this applies to everyone I met, especially IRL, who have addressed me by feminine pronoun terms, and like, I mainly reference brain cells as they were the first to know, and like, and I've known them the longest. Yeah, this scene is really important to me because it literally reminded me of the moments that I have when people... It's such a really good scene. This scene is perfectly... Look at this artwork. Oh my goodness, look at these two. I love them. But this scene is so well written, and the feelings they described for it, with Ushio being like how she felt flustered, how she felt happy that she was referred to as a girl. It's just really beautiful, and I'm glad I could finally have a way to talk about it in this video. But now, in this scene, I mentioned two important things in this scene. One is the gender identity validation that I relate to, and another is this scene. You may remember me talking about Sakuma trying to struggle through his emotions with Ushio and how he feels about her. And it's here when those feelings sort of collide, because when Sakuma gets bandaged by Ushio, Kuma starts feeling a bit of random amount of emotions. Let me just quote it right now. But the biggest emotion I felt was none of these. It was one I couldn't quite articulate. It was akin to a feeling of emptiness, like a cold wind blowing through a gaping hole in my chest. Was I disheartened? Was I feeling discouraged about something? And if so, what? And after he goes home, he realizes the exact thought. Carving my way through the wind, I exhumed that confusing feeling I got back in Ushio's bedroom to give it a closer look. And this time, it was almost anticlimactic how quickly I realized what the true cause of that vexation was. There was a thought I felt disheartened by, and guilty for even having. If only Ushio had been born a girl, this would all be so simple. She was attractive, she had a great personality, she was a good friend whom I had a ton of history with, and she liked me. And if she weren't biologically male, I very well might have fallen for her right there and then, when she wrapped that bandage around my finger. But despite being her friend and supporting her transition, I just couldn't mentally bridge that gap between what she'd been born as and what she identified as. And that was a really, really depressing realization to me. All I could do was lament the sad reality of it all. I deplored whatever divine creator had seen fit to put Ushio in the body she didn't belong in. If only her sex and gender were aligned, there'd be no reason for her to have to struggle so hard to come to terms with her identity. Or worse, to try to convince herself that it was an illness or mental deficiency, and she just needed to let it go. If only she'd been born a girl, I might have even... Well, there was no point thinking about it, really. I lifted myself up off the seat of my bike and pedaled faster, as hard as I could. You see why I like this book? You see how fucking detailed this was right here, and how much, like, even if you aren't part, even if you aren't trans or anything like that, you can read this and be like, you can understand. At least I hope you can. Media literacy! Sorry. Especially when it's coming from the perspective of someone who isn't like, you know, LGBTQ. Like, I'm not trans or anything like that. But, like, you know, I'm seeing my best friend, and I'm having trouble seeing her as a girl. And I wish she was born a girl. I wish she didn't have to suffer or be called a mental deficiency. To just let go and such, because it's who she is. Like, you know, it's a really good scene. It's really important, you know. I don't think I need the words to describe it because it's just really good. And there's a little small scene here that I'm not going to talk about, but if you get to this point, you'll understand. It basically furthers to show Sakuma's complex feelings in Ushio about seeing her as a girl. And this, like, it gets way more in depth later on in the series, where, a little spoiler here, but, Sakuma does finally see Ushio as a girl. Not just, you know, girl as a transition, but, like, the girl that he could have a crush on. It's complicated. Like, even in Sakuma's mind, he's so conflicted about it. But, like, he does love Ushio, and that's something that's true. If it isn't true, I'm gonna cry. Anyway, so next thing I want to talk about is the themes of the story, the themes of prejudice and not understanding, and we can see this with two pairs of characters, Nishizono and Ushio, and Sera and Sakuma. And I'm going to talk about Ushio and Nishizono first, because I mentioned Nishizono way far back. And now I get to bring her to the present, so I can actually tell you about how much of a bitch she is. Sorry, okay, I mean it that way, but she's a really horrible character. Not horrible as in written, but horrible as in her actions. She's wonderfully written. And I want to talk about it a little bit. So Nishizono does not like Ushio's transition. She makes it very clear. I mentioned earlier the whole Ushio's, she writes on the blackboards being like, oh, Ushio's a pervert, creep, pedophile, stuff like that. And Ushio does not, Nishizono does not support her transition. She thinks it's a bit, and that you should stop it before other people get embarrassed and such. And she's very conformed to society and such. And she gets to the point where she starts verbally abusing, you know, stealing Ushio's skirt and being like, whose skirt did this belong to? It can't belong to you, Ushio. You're a boy. And, you know, pushing lunch boxes down and such. And eventually comes to a point where she accidentally hits Ushio and gets suspended, so thank fucking God. There's this one point very late on the story where I'm not gonna spoil anything, but Sakuma and Nishizono have an argument regarding regarding Ushio's identity, and this, like, their argument goes on for a very fucking long time. And the thing I said regarding, like, you know, how the author does, like, passionate rants and such, it comes to here when it's like 4 pages of just a straight argument. It's really good because Nishizono's mindset is how Ushio transitioning affects her life and how it will affect her future life, like in terms of how society sees it and such. Like, so for example, Ushio had a good life. If he'd only stay a boy, he would have had it made. His whole life laid out for him. A good life. But the moment he decided to be a girl, he threw out all those blessings and privileges out the window. And all that awaits him now is if he keeps going down this road is a life of hardship and pain, where everyone keeps their distance and laughs at him for being a freak. And here you are telling me you want that for him? They just talk about, like, you know, changing your mind and such, regarding, like, you know, I want to be a girl, and that's what's, and Nishizono's like, let's just be honest here. It's a lot easier to change your mind than it is to change your biological sex. So even if you don't completely identify with your so-called assigned gender, I think it's a whole lot smarter and healthier to just try to adjust your mindset to match your body you were born in, rather than try to change it. Especially when you're someone like Ushio, who is blessed with all the talents and good looks a boy could ask for. And the argument keeps going until Natsuki says something. Natsuki, the girl Sakuma has a crush on. So I haven't mentioned her this entire story. She doesn't really fit my narrative. Sorry. She is a good character though, and I hope she does get more focus in the volumes, but the only reason why the argument ends is because Natsuki says, don't get me wrong, Nishizono. I do get where you're coming from. I think it's pretty smart to think about the long term too, you know, what will happen in the future and such. Not that I expect any less from you, but in this case, I think you just need to realize that this decision was the product of a lot of thought and consideration on Ushio-chan's part, and it took a whole lot of courage. So I don't think any of us have the right to say we know what the best decision for her is more than she does. And, well, I think it's a pretty incredible thing to actually start working towards being the version of yourself you really want to be. I want to support her in that. And Nishizono's like, I see. And I think Natsuki's statement here is really good because while obviously you can understand where she's coming from, like you have a whole good life, you feel that way just because you wanted to be a girl, you lost everything. And think about in the future, you're gonna be believed as a freak. You're gonna be fucking scanned every time you go to the TSA because they think you have a fucking lump in your pants or some shit like that. And like obviously she has like, you can understand perspective, but I think Natsuki's statement of, you know, well, she put a lot of thought into this. This is who she wants to be, and the best thing, you know, you can, like, you know, like the same right there. I think it's a pretty incredible thing to actually start working towards being the version of yourself you really want to be. But the thing is, you can understand how realistic this is, where Nishizono is coming from. Like, not even besides the fact that she thinks it's a freak, you know, you can't change that. You know, like, you know, she has her reasons, and her reasons are valid in a way. But, you know, it all comes down to, you know, you aren't in control of Ushio's life, and Ushio has thought about this for a very long time. And, you know, it took a lot of courage, and she wants to be the version that she wants to be, you know. And to further the point that Nishizono is kind of a dick, I opened the book to a random page, and this page right here where Nishizono describes Ushio dressing as a girl as fun / make-believe, Ushio literally describes it as, you think this is fun? And the suggestions that Nishizono makes towards Ushio isn't as simple as she thinks it is, and Nishizono just rubs it off. So I mean, character development for how she reacts later on. And you know, even from like a non-LGBTQ standpoint, like you can understand that perspective, becoming the version of yourself that you really want to be. It doesn't matter, you know, a version of yourself that's better, a version of yourself that's more confident, you know, maybe if you're an introvert, you want to be an extrovert, you know, stuff like that. And it's these statements right here that make me, you know, understand why the author decided to exclude LGBTQ terms to make it to a more relatable audience, because you can read this and still understand it. Someone's being insulted, someone's being verbally abused because they want to be the person they want to be the person they really want to be, and you can understand that. You can understand like the pain they could feel like upon that, being pushed down because you just want to be someone you personally want to be. And it's a really good scene. Nishizono's really good, really well written. I'm really curious to see what happens in the future for her. So that's the whole thing with Ushio and Nishizono putting her thoughts and her perception, her mindset onto Ushio and trying to force, like, go back to who you were. It's that feeling of like not understanding why Ushio wanted to do it in the first place, which is why she stops when Natsuki, you know, be the version of yourself you want to be. And now we can talk about Sera and Sakuma. So, I'm not gonna talk too much about this because there's a lot of story here that I don't want to. Dude, last time I tried recording this, I talked so much that I just did a live reading of the entire fucking book. It went on for 5 hours straight, and by the end of it, I was like, what the fuck was the story about? What the fuck is this recording about? So I'm just basically gonna do a TLDR. If you want to read the story, just read the story for yourself, bro. Just please read the story for yourself. So, Sera and Sakuma. Sera is someone who comes from Tokyo. He moved over to the suburb town, and he's a lot more progressive in a way. Sera immediately starts flirting with Ushio. Oh yeah, Sera knows that Ushio was born a boy. He gets told very early on, but he's like, I don't give a fuck. So yeah, pretty progressive. And Sera's mindset is very progressive. And what I mean by that is that while Sera is trying to flirt with Ushio, Sakuma sees Sera at multiple points kissing and dating other girls. And he's always like, Sakuma's like, what the fuck? And so Sera has a very non-monogamy mindset. He's very, polygamy and such, multiple partners. And he's genuinely like, well, if I like this one girl and I like this other girl really a lot, and I like them both to match the same, and I'm able to, dedicate time to both of them, make them both feel loved, then what's the problem with that? Like it says right here. And Sakuma's really irrational about this. Like, he's like, what the fuck? That's wrong. That's fucking wrong. And like, you can obviously agree with Sakuma and like, but the way he goes about it in the story itself is pretty like, it's like, raged sort of. And it's one part and because of like, he doesn't understand the mindset, also because Ushio, but that's a spoiler. I can't talk about it. The only thing I want to talk about is Ushio and Nishizono and Sera and Sakuma and the parallels they have between each other. Sera's like to Sakuma, to me, it sounds like maybe you've gotten yourself trapped in the classic monogamy mindset that says everybody can only love one another person at a time, which is why you could refuse to accept that anyone could ever be in love with multiple people like I am. Am I right? And Sera's like the one who understands, understand where Sakuma's coming from regarding like, polygamy. Like, he's like, well, I do get where you're coming from, to be fair. Words like infidelity and two-timing don't have very good connotations in our society. But if you ask me, that's the weirdest part of it all. Like, we're taught from a very young age that we should try to make as many friends as possible. And that's a virtue to get along with everyone, love your neighbor and whatnot. Yet, as soon as you start talking about dating and marriage, that massive group of people suddenly has to get funneled down to just one person. And even if you can't make up your mind and falling up in love with 2 or more people who all fully consent to it, there'll always be people like you who come along and try to pass judgment, acting like it's some morally effed up thing to feel bad about. That's pretty damn ridiculous if you ask me. I'm just a new age romantic, honestly, stuck in living in a world that refuses to accept my lifestyle as valid. Romantic my ass, Sakuma says. Your argument's as shallow as your personality. There's just no way you'll ever convince me you're actually in love with 3 people at once, with none of them ever getting the short end of the stick. And Sera's like, I don't know what else to tell you, bud. Not like there's any way for me to prove to you how much I love them individually, I mean, you see me with Ushio at school, right? So I'm sure you recognize how much effort I'm willing to put in the relationship. You can see, because I'm not quoting too many things right now, but the whole thing is that Sakuma's like, dude, this is wrong. Like, no matter if you want, like, you obviously, like, you never convinced me you're actually in love with 3 people at once. And it's like, it's the same mindset of putting your thoughts and perception onto someone else. Like, and even Sera's like, I don't know what to tell you, bro. I can't prove to you how much I love it individually, And the same thing that Nishizono does with Ushio, being like, putting her thoughts and mindset onto Ushio, being like, your future life's gonna suck. Your future, like, not thinking about the actual person themselves, like, thinking what's better for them and such, rather than, this is something that they personally want to do. And first, I'm gonna say right now, Sera is not a good character. I mean, like, he's a well-written character, but he's not a good character, like, morally. There's a lot of bad things about him, but regarding this specific situation that I'm using him for in terms of themes, you can sort of see the parallels where both people don't understand, don't understand, nor do they really try to understand, and they put their thoughts and perceptions onto them. And this actually gets pointed out directly by Sakuma himself, which is why I was able to point out this theme. Yeah, there we are right here. Let me read to you right now. Put another way, our feelings of disgust were nothing more than a representation of our own personal bias or prejudices. Or no, in Nishizono's case, there was a twisted kind of wishful thinking consideration at work too, as she herself admitted she wanted Ushio to go back to being a boy, and that she didn't want him to have to suffer or face discrimination her whole life as a result of this decision. I didn't want to admit it. I really didn't want to admit it, but I knew I had to. If I couldn't even acknowledge my own shortcomings, that was when I know it was really too late for me. In my defense, when you feel disgusted by something or someone, it was pretty damn hard to shake that feeling. So of course I hadn't felt inclined to try to understand Sera as a person. The guy hadn't done anything to hurt or offend me in particular, I just didn't like him as a person. that I couldn't get behind his choice and actions, plain and simple. Everyone probably had that, at least one person like that in their lives. And while it certainly wasn't very kind and mature to tell people to their face that you found them disgusting, you couldn't really help the feeling itself when someone really rubbed you the wrong way. Were Nishizono and I discussed in the same way by Ushio and Sera respectively? No, surely not. Nishizono had just been spouting verbal abuse based on nothing but her own selfish opinion, whereas I was making an honest, personal, and moral judgment of his character, which meant the key difference between the two of us was, no key distinction came to mind. And he's doing this during like a test and such, where he's just constantly thinking, but it comes to the conclusion that like, I was thinking irrationally, I was just being enraged because I couldn't get behind what you personally think. And later on in the story, he does apologize to Sera, but Sera's like, I don't remember that because Sera's a fucking stupid. I hate Sera so much. He's I don't like him. I don't like him. He's well written, but I don't like him. But yeah, that's one of Sakuma's defining good moments. He has a lot of good moments, but this is one of his best moments, that he's able to sort of grow and realize that, you know, to grow from the place that he lives in. Because, you know, remember the suburb town, it's a very backwards community, and he didn't realize himself, but he was also sort of backwards. Like, you know, you don't have to completely like, oh yeah, I'm with you, but you can at least be like, okay, I understand. Okay, let me rephrase that one. That one sounds kind of bad, but you don't gotta be like in full support, like you do polygamy as well. No, but it's more so you understand, you chill, like you don't give a fuck. So, now that I got to the themes, I want to talk about my favorite moments here. So one of my favorite moments is obviously the one in the bandage scene, and also because this is the part where Sakuma actually starts seeing Ushio as a girl, and it gets way further than that. It gets way more. There's a lot of things that because there's a whole bit thing. There's a whole thing here where okay, I need to explain this part. This story is actually so cliche in the way it's a love triangle. Sakuma likes Natsuki, but it turns out Natsuki likes Ushio, but Ushio likes Sakuma, and so we get this. I've been purposely avoiding this scene because of how much it hurts me, but basically when Ushio realizes that Sakuma likes Natsuki and not her, we get this incredibly sad picture in the line, "Guess I'll never be a match for a real girl, will I?" It's the end of part 1, chapter 1. And it's just a sad phase, and this is like right after this happens is the whole Sera subplot, and I don't want to talk about it more, so let's move on. So that's like one of my bittersweet moments. Like it's a good moment. It's a good moment in a way, like, you know, and how it makes you feel, but like I don't like reading it. It makes me sad, man. Another good scene I want to talk about is the final scene of the book, where so the whole point of this story, at this point, Sera is trying to flirt with Ushio, and Ushio's like, okay, if you can get first place in the exams, I will date you. And so Natsuki and Sakuma get a hold of this, like, we cannot let this happen. Natsuki's like, I don't trust Sera, and Sakuma's like, yeah, I don't trust Sera as well. At a certain point, while Sakuma's talking with Ushio, Sakuma's like, Ushio, Sakuma sucks. No, Ushio, Sera sucks. And Sakuma starts going on a passionate rant about Sera, being like, okay, he's a bad guy, he blah 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 blah, he sucks, he probably, it doesn't matter, he's like, you know, you need to stay the hell away from the guy, he is not right in the head and such. And then Ushio's like, why are you getting so angry about this, Sakuma? And then Sakuma takes like a bit of time to realize why he was angry, and then his only words he can say is, I just don't want to let him have you. And Ushio starts blushing and shit, and it's really complicated because the love triangle that's going on here is fucking insane. Like, Sakuma likes Natsuki, but over time in the series, Sakuma starts liking Ushio, and it gets really bad until we reach this final scene where Sakuma does the exams. He actually gets number 1 in it. Sera gets like 32 because he sucks. And so crap, okay, I need to remember this. So early in the story, Ushio confesses that she likes Sakuma. Then later on, Ushio figures out that Sakuma likes Natsuki, and Sakuma's like, I can't answer your confession right now. So after that period, it's been sort of blank. Sakuma hasn't given an answer yet. And so after the exams, Ushio runs away, and after Sakuma catches up with her, we get this really good scene, like sort of argument between Ushio and Sakuma, where Ushio's like, I heard you got first in our grade. I know you've never been that smart, Sakuma, and I remember how sick you were in those exam days. Yet you still got first in spite of all that. I take you must have pushed yourself pretty hard studying them, right? So tell me, why did you put in all that effort? What was it for? And then Sakuma's like, to stop Sera from winning that bet you made with him. And why did you feel so strongly about that? I mean, because he's not a good person. Not sure if you ever heard us talking in the classroom right now, but it's pretty obvious he was never actually serious about you. When I finished speaking, Ushio let out an exaggerated sigh and mussed up her hair for both her hands in frustration. I don't want to talk about Sera, she said. I really don't care, okay? Don't care? But he just basically admitted he was messing with you from the get-go. Yeah, you think I didn't know that? I could tell from the way he talked to me that he was just killing time, and that he wasn't actually interested in me as a person. Yeah, Sera kind of sucks, but you know, I was trying to think optimistic in Sera. And so it gets to a point where Ushio finally admits the whole reason why she tried to get with Sera, and it was just so, I just didn't know how to get over you, okay? I wasn't ready to just give up on you, Sakuma, but I knew I couldn't keep having feelings for you either. It was starting to get exhausting, so I wanted to find someone, some way to help me stop forgetting about you. I didn't care who or what, as long as they could distract me enough to help me move on. But then you just had to go and do this, didn't you? What are you even trying to do here, Sakuma? Did you want to snatch away first place from Sera so that you could go out with me instead? It couldn't be that, right? You were probably just trying to show off to Natsuki, weren't you? Because of a crush on her, and you wanted to prove to her that you could pull it off if you really put your mind to it. That's all this was to you, right? So just say it already. Say you're not interested in me like that. Say this had nothing to do with me whatsoever. I can't handle. Ugh, fuck. I can't read it. I can't read. Fuck. I can't handle these mixed signals you give me anymore. It's making me miserable, Sakuma. Just tell me you don't have feelings for me and get it over with. I'm begging you. I know it sucks. You think I've never had to let someone down before? I've lost a lot of good friends like that. Been forced to break the hearts of girls I hardly even knew. It's never fun. It's just something you have to do. But then there are cowards like you who just keep dragging it out and leading people on and let them get the wrong idea. I brought my right hand up and gently laid it on top of Ushio's trembling left. It was pale, slender, and cold. Her bony fingers felt fragile to the touch. And for whatever reason, this filled me with such a strange sadness. I brought my gaze up, tracing along her arm span all the way to her slim neck, her delicate features, her arms her mouth pursed tightly shut, her cheeks flushed red, and her gray eyes glimmering in the light pouring in through the window. There was a radiance like an aureole around her head, as if the sun had woven itself into each and every strand of her silver blonde hair. She really was cute, pretty, beautiful even. But I knew what I had to do. And Sakuma puts a definitive label on his feelings towards Ushio. Yeah, I have feelings for Natsuki, but I can't reciprocate yours. But then he pulls up this shit. But listen to me, Ushio. This doesn't mean you and I can't still be close or anything like that. I'm going to keep interacting with you like always, even if it might be pretty damn awkward at first. Even if you tell me to get lost, I won't listen. I'm going to keep myself planted firmly in your life whether you like it or not. Because, I mean, you are my best friend after all. And Ushio choked out a low whimper. She was now doing her best to stifle tears as she hung there, clinging to the collar of my shirt. I reached out my own hand up and placed it on top of her head, running my fingers through her hair to comfort her. There was nothing awkwardly intimate about this motion to me. It just felt like the right thing to do, given our relative proximity and the situation. So I did it. And so we get this one more scene where Sakuma describes Ushio. It's really good. She lifted her head, looking up at me with eyes that still held a twinge of longing as they stared directly into mine. Her flushed cheeks, her hot breath, her tear-soaked lashes. I felt a heavy funk in my heart, and I gulped. I felt uncomfortably warm, like I could feel the blood coursing through every vein in my body. Anticipation and fear continued to grow in equal measure, both emotions vying for total control over my mind as my body went stiff, like an animal seizing up at the sight of two glowing eyes in a bush. Then, in what was both an eternity and an instant, I caught a whiff of something. Not from my nose, but with every pore, every receptor, and every primal instinct embedded in every cell of my entire body. Something like pheromones, an intoxicating scent that I could only describe as woman. And not a moment later, Ushio grabbed my chest and pulled me in by the fabric of my shirt. And then she pressed her lips against mine. And just like that, she'd stolen my first kiss. Look at the picture. And Ushio's like, oh god, Sakuma, I didn't mean to, and then Natsuki sees them and is like, were you two just kissing? What the fuck? And then, yeah, that's the end of volume 1. Nah, that's that's the end of volume 1. And it's like a fucking bombshell like that. And so, we finally see the, like, conclusion of what Sakuma sees Ushio as, you know. Once, like, that final statement where Sakuma describes it as woman, like, it's like, Sakuma finally sees Ushio as a girl. Like, in his head, and it's really important and really cool. Yeah, like, you know, just reading this entire book and seeing like Sakuma start noticing more things about Ushio until he finally sees her as one fully in terms of like the romantic sense. It's really good. I like it. Yeah. So yeah, I only have a few more bullet points here now, so I can just talk about it now. So let's just get to it. So like once you read the afterword, like, you know, how we like, you know, exclude LGBTQ terms and such. One of the biggest themes in most conventions is understanding. You know, just because we don't understand something doesn't mean we should be so brash again or violent. We should try our best to understand, you know, ask the person, you know, understand how they feel, like what caused them to, you know, stuff like that and such. And it's the reason why I feel like you should read this book, even if you aren't part of LGBTQ or not. I feel like you should really read this book because it provides a very amazing understanding into what people like me feel. And if you don't understand that, then you could read this book and be like, okay, well, I see what Noodle thinks. And, you know, like, just like in the book itself, sometimes we don't understand. We tend to act irrationally in anger because we don't understand, because, you know, like in our mind, it's not right. And, you know, this book addresses it in a lot of ways. It's really good. It's really realistic. It's really realistic in the way, like, their arguments go about it. Either be, you know, either irrational or, like, you know, actual constructive arguments and such. And if you're someone like me, for LGBTQ, damn, I slur that, LGBTQ and such, you will get a lot of satisfaction from this book. You will feel represented, you know, if you're trans, male, female, and such, or even maybe even female, male, who knows? But like you'll understand the feelings that the characters say in this book, and you might even relate to some of the reactions that some people might have to someone coming out and such. And if you aren't LGBTQ or anything like the sorts like that, you'll understand a little bit more how we feel. And you know, the more we understand about each other, the more we can align together. You know, because once we start understanding each other, we can start like, oh, we can form connections and such. And, you know, just like what the afterword said, you know, make it more relatable to a wider audience. And, you know, obviously you can read some of this and be like, oh yeah, I can relate to a situation where I try to be myself and I got pushed down for it. Someone else is trying to do the same thing. Someone who's trans is trying to do the same thing. Oh, I understand how they feel, you know, connection bonds. And that thing can work where the more we understand each other, the more we can, you know, be like, oh, okay, I understand, you know, world peace and shit like that. Obviously that's a fucking general simplification, because not obviously not going to happen, but you know, it's little things like that that can help start forge those ways through, if your mind is willing to open to that. Yeah, because if you're not even willing to open up your mind for this, there's really no point in this. You can just leave. You're somehow still watching this. So I only have a few more. I have like one more last note here, so I'm just gonna say right now, the Mimosa Confessions is on Amazon, so make sure to support the official release. You ever get like as a book or Kindle and such like that. You know, I usually, you know, I'd say go find on the internet and such, but you know, no, there's an exception. Please buy this book. We need as many people to buy the book. We need as many people to spread the word. Ever since I read this book, I've been in the Mimosa Confessions community. I've been posting edits on TikTok. I've been posting posts on Reddit. I've not used Reddit in such a long time. I only use Reddit now just for Mimosa Confessions, and you can it's so fucking old, it even has my old name. And I even post about it on Twitter. I'm really trying to get everyone to read this book, and hopefully if you watch this video through, you sort of understand this book, and hopefully you can read it yourself, because I exclude some big ass moments in this story, and you need to read it. It's such an amazing book. And now this is my third attempt. This is the first attempt, but I didn't really do anything with that. This is my third attempt recording it, and I'm going to edit and such. So if you've gotten to this point, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my fucking thoughts, and please read Mimosa Confessions and let me know if you read it. This book is so good. Alright, well, that's all for me. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye! Damn, dude, this camera needs I need to get a new camera right now. Oh my goodness.